So my topic is looking at leadership beyond the blueprint, and I'd like to start by relating a story about myself, because leadership and the elusiveness of leadership has been a topic of fascination for me for more than 30 years. I think that immediately gives my age away, in case the beard didn't. But when I think back to my first encounter with identifying what leadership looks like, was not as a teacher, but as a student, trying to identify the best way forward as a leader. I would analyze what students would do, and I would look at what it took for that leader to be recognized. Not because I thought they should be the role models that I was focusing on, but rather because I needed to emulate and copy what they were doing so that I could become a leader. A little bit of ignorance back then, but I thought if I did exactly what they did, I would become head student. So in year 11, I was the chairman of the grade 11 committee that took care of all the fundraising and ensured that the events were arranged. And as I did all of that, I thought this was going to impress everyone, and that would certainly be what I did. But I also wanted to make sure that I was doing a social campaign, so I was involved in pioneering a team called the Teenagers Against Drug Abuse. Ta-da! And the TADA group made sure that we were going into primary schools talking about the dangers of drug abuse and what they need to look at. And we thought we were speaking out of a lot of wisdom, but it was certainly not exactly what we knew much about, thankfully. So the shock came at the end of year 11 when they announced head students, and even though I was recognized as one of the prefects, I was not made head boy. And probably for a moment or two, I couldn't hide the expression on my face as I considered the shock, but I was also shocked that my best friend, who was the junior mayor of the city Pretoria that we were in, was also not recognized as head boy. And this is something we had both decided we were going to strive for, and we were both willing to be the deputy for the other one. And that turned out not to be what happened. It did, however, give me the opportunity to reflect and think about what is it that makes us become leaders? What is it that then allows us to be recognized? I stopped worrying too much about that, carried on, focused on my academics in grade 12, the final year of school, and I also remained involved in the activities that our head boy and head girl led us in. When I got to university, I got more involved again, and I was able to be representative as a class captain, faculty spokesperson, and even serve as a house committee executive as well. And all of these roles become ones that were more important, not because somebody was telling me I should be them, but because it was what I was driven towards. And so it led me to understand that there are three areas of leadership, or at least leadership recognition. That would be selection, election, and initiative. A leader that is selected is identified according to the work that they're doing. They might not be doing the leadership role yet, but what they are doing allows everybody else to see that they might be suited to the role. In election, you need to be able to speak for yourself, and you put yourself forward to be identified in that role. That might lead to votes involved, etc., but it allows students to identify something in you that you are presenting. But a leader of initiative shows that you take the role that is important to you without considering whether somebody else is going to recognize you in that position or not. Invariably, you are going to be recognized, possibly in selection, for your role as initiative, simply because you are identifying something that is important to you and somebody else sees that leadership as well. So my encouragement to you is to think about what you see yourself as. And so you need to open a window. And for the sake of this analogy, I'm going to talk about Johari's window, which is a psychologist's term to refer to the areas of our lives that we understand for ourselves. What is it that we know ourselves to be doing. And firstly, the first part of the 4 panes in the window would be what we know about ourselves that others know as well. People can see it in us and we can see it in ourselves as well. There is a blind spot in the window where other people might see things about us that we don't see in ourselves. And then there are the things that would be hidden, the areas that we keep to ourselves. We know it about ourselves, but we don't really want others to see that in ourselves. And then the complete mystery of the things that we don't know and that others don't know either. The best way to remove the blind spot is to get reflection from others. If we request feedback, we get people to tell us what it is that they see us doing. They are able to then identify those areas that we can't see. And that wisdom can then encourage us to be more engaged, more involved, and therefore know ourselves better as well. The second point beyond our own self-awareness would be communication. We need to be certain of the way we communicate with others. If we are aggressive in our communication, we will certainly get the message across, but we might lose the attention of the person because of the way we are speaking to them. If we are passive, we might not get the job done at all because we're leaving it up to somebody else to end up doing that. Passive-aggressive is a lose-lose situation because we might be saying it in a way that we think we're getting it done without offending, but at the same time we're losing them because we're not really encouraging them in what they say. So our assertive voice would be the one that gets things done in a peaceful manner, but still being clear about what the task is that is required. Edward de Bono is known for creativity and decision making, and he talks about the 6 hats of decision making and creative thinking. If we want to approach a problem and find the solution in that, we should think about which hat we're going to wear. And the 6 hats are approaching the 6 different aspects that we need to look at to consider how we can solve the problem. It's particularly useful to think about them as hats because we only have one head, and so we can only wear one hat at a time. So as we consider the different aspects, we might put the white hat of facts and information on, where we just consider all the points that need to be there. The red hat of emotion allows us to think about how we feel about the situation. The black hat is the judgmental hat that allows us to think carefully from a devil's advocate point of view of thinking about what could go wrong and being able to address all those issues. The opposite of that would be the yellow hat of positivity, being positive and highlighting every great thing that's going to happen with that. The blue hat is the hat of control, and just like a policeman, you would find yourself as leader needing to control all the bits of information that you're getting from every aspect of the different points that are raised. On your own, you should only be wearing one hat at a time. But this is the opportunity as a team to select the different hats that different people would follow, and together you can find the solution. It's better than trying to answer all of those questions all at the same time and having a lot of noise in your head rather than being able to come up with a clear solution. Decision making is important, and it allows us to communicate what we need to do. But when we are in an environment where we are trying to sort out what we need to do, we need to also make sure that we are managing our stress. Stress management is very important because we respond to a situation through the amygdala that affects our emotional response. It's like the smoke detector in your head when you are under stress. And you might either approach it from a fight perspective, a flight perspective, or a freeze perspective. The fight situation is where you aggressively point out what is wrong and react very emotionally, but very often without thinking about the consequence that might be landed with the other person. If you are in the flight or freeze mode, you try to escape. You ignore the questions, you ignore the emails, the queries that somebody might have, and you put off making that decision until a later time. But putting it off doesn't solve the problem, it doesn't address it either. So we need to be able to remove the stress and allow ourselves to face the situation in a problem-solving situation. Back to the 6 hats, for example. But the motivation behind that needs to be related to our attitude. Our attitude is determined by identifying our locus of control. Locus of control refers to whether we are motivated by an outside motivator, something that somebody else tells us, our instructions that we receive from our teachers or our parents, or just from reading what other people have said, or are we motivated internally? Our internal locus of control means that we might not be able to control what the other person is saying, but we can certainly react and choose our reaction in that situation. Our reaction allows us to feel empowered, and it allows us to voice what it is that we believe the next step should be. We should be leaders of initiative, where we are finding the things that are most important to us, and we are encouraging the people around us to lead with us, or to follow us if they're not feeling motivated with that. The blueprint stands in front of us. It is up to us to decide what we do with that blueprint, and we need to take the initiative and build something ourselves. Thank you.